Today, we're going behind the curtain to look at a set of tools that can find information Google can't even dream of touching. We're talking about the proprietary databases that professionals use to build a complete, detailed picture of a person's life.
So just imagine for a second, what if there was a search engine, but instead of searching for websites, it searched for people? A place where you could type in a name and instantly get a detailed history of where they've lived, who they're connected to, and a whole lot more.
Well, guess what? That tool is real. It exists, and it's used every single day by investigators, by law firms, by big financial institutions. But, and this is a big but, this is not something you can just log into from your couch. Access is incredibly restricted, and for good reason. So, let's crack open the Investigator's secret toolkit.
The first question is obvious, right? How on earth do these databases get so much information on so many people? Well, it's not magic. It's actually a massive data merging operation. Let's take a look at how these incredibly detailed profiles get built from the ground up.
It all comes down to these companies called data aggregators. You can think of them as the architects. First, they hoover up all the public government records they can find. We're talking property deeds, court filings, that kind of stuff. Then they add a really crucial layer, data from the big credit bureaus. And finally, they stir in all sorts of commercial data. Think utility bills, magazine subscriptions, even the address you used for an online order. They merge these three giant streams of data together, and what you get is what the industry calls a 360-degree profile.
Okay, so you can imagine, with that kind of power comes a whole lot of responsibility. Getting access to these systems isn't a right, it's a privilege, and it's governed by some very strict federal laws. Let's break down the 3 golden rules that every single user has to live by.
This right here, this is the bedrock of the entire system. Before an investigator can even think about hitting that search button, they have to declare a legally valid reason for the search. It's a concept called Permissible Purpose, and it's basically the digital gatekeeper that stops people from just looking up their neighbors for fun.
So the first big law you need to know is the Fair Credit Reporting Act, or FCRA for short. This one is huge because it deals with the big moments in your life, like getting a job, renting an apartment, or applying for a loan. What it means is that a potential employer can't just go digging through these databases to run a background check on you without getting your clear, written consent first. It's a major protection. Next up is the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, the GLBA. This one is all about protecting your financial privacy. It makes something called pretexting totally illegal. And pretexting is basically just a fancy word for lying, pretending to be someone else to trick a bank into giving you their private information. The GLBA says that's a federal crime. And finally, there's the Driver's Privacy Protection Act, the DPPA. This law puts a lock on all that personal information the DMV has on you, your photo, your address, all those details. It means someone can't just run your license plate because they're curious about who's driving that car. They need a legitimate, legally sound reason to do it.
So, let's make this crystal clear. What's a permissible purpose in the real world? Well, investigating a fraud case, preparing for a lawsuit, or trying to collect on a court-ordered debt. All totally legal. But what about checking up on your new neighbor, or vetting someone you're about to go on a date with, or looking up a celebrity just for kicks? Absolutely 100% illegal. These systems are audited, and getting caught means you could face some serious federal charges.
Okay, so now let's talk about the real game changer. Inside all of this data, there's one specific piece of information that investigators consider the absolute holy grail. It's the key to locating people and truly understanding their history.
It's called credit header data. Now, it's really important to know what this isn't. This is not your credit score. It's not a list of your credit cards or how much you owe. All that sensitive financial stuff is stripped away. Think of it like the cover page of your credit report. What's left is an incredibly powerful historical record of your names, your date of birth, your social security number, and, most importantly, a running list of your past addresses.
And what this lets an investigator do is build a timeline of movement. They can literally see where a person was living or at least receiving mail and paying bills at different points in time. So if someone tells them a story, oh, I was living in Florida back in 2018, but the credit header shows an address in New York, well, that's a huge red flag. It becomes an unbelievably powerful tool for poking holes in a story or verifying that it's true.
So you have the data. You have the legal right to access it. You think you're all set, right? Well, not quite. There's one final, and I'd say most important lesson for any professional in this field, and it's all about how you interpret the information you find.
There's an old saying in the investigations world that everyone learns. The report is a map, not the territory. And that is such a crucial idea. It means that the data you get from the database is just a guide. It's a starting point. It is not the absolute, confirmed 100% truth.
This is the critical difference between a lead and a fact. The database gives you a lead, say an address, but it could be wrong. It could be a false positive. Maybe the person's cousin just used their address to get a package delivered once. The investigator's real job is to take that lead and verify it, to turn it into a fact. You do that by checking property records or by doing a drive-by to see who's actually living there. You never, ever take unverified data and present it as fact.
So, when you step back and think about it, all of our digital breadcrumbs and paper trails are constantly being woven together into a story. And the laws we talked about, well, they're the gatekeepers who decide who gets a library card to read that story. It really leaves us with one final thing to think about. In this world full of data, who do you think should have permission to read your story?